Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. We are here with Mitch Whiting, and I'm incredibly excited because he went from Walmart to opening his own business and helping true leaders become who they really need to become. I'm excited to talk to you because you have exploded, but I actually want to start with like when you worked at Walmart.
Yeah.
And like, how did you decide, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur? Because that's not an easy decision.
Yeah, it was not a decision for me. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because I didn't mean for this. Like my dad worked for 30 years in Fortune 50 company. That was just the template. I have no entrepreneurs in my family. And so I always said, I'm going to work for Walmart for 30 years, which is not the smartest thing to say to your managers in terms of negotiating compensation. They're like, oh yeah, he's going to stay no matter what, you know? But I just loved it. And I am writing a book right now. And the first sentence, it could change, but the first sentence is when you're flying on an executive jet, the last thing you expect is to be miserable.
Oh.
And it was a few years later when I saw a picture of myself on this executive jet that I realized for the first time that I was miserable. In the moment, I was stoked out of my mind. Like, how cool is it to be on an executive jet for the first time? I flew at 7 a.m., and to Florida from Arkansas, saw the ocean, met with $1 billion founder, spent the day with them, and was back before dinner. And I was kicking myself because I was like, my wife Tatum, I was like, I shouldn't have told her. How funny would that be at dinner time? She's like, how's your day? I was like, oh, it's good. Like, I just love seeing the ocean. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, I went to Florida. She's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, yeah, I took an executive jet. It would have been so awesome to just like tease her. But I saw this picture a few years later, and you don't have to know anything about me to look into my eyes in this photo and to see suffering.
Wow.
You know when someone's smiling, but their eyes aren't really smiling. Mm-hmm. And it was a time of my life where I was relying on positivity to cover and to escape my stress and my overwhelm. I was being optimistic instead of real with what I was really feeling. And it wasn't until I was at the doctor's office getting an allergy shot in my rear end because it snows pollen in Arkansas.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep. And I was getting this allergy shot, and the nurse said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed are you? And I am an honest person. I try to be really honest. And so I said 2. And my wife is with me, and she's so loving. You know her very well. And she's also very precise in her language. She doesn't exaggerate. And she looked at me, and she looked at the nurse, and she looked at me, and she said, are you kidding me? You're like a 9. Oh, and so I'm having this moment realizing, wow, I'm really not aware of my emotional state because I'm a 9 out of 10 stressed, and I think I'm a 2. And what I later realized was that gratitude was actually getting in my way. It's a really weird concept to hear.
I've never heard that concept.
You will understand it when I explain it because we've all experienced it, especially as high-performing leaders, is that gratitude gets in our way when we have a hard time admitting that we want and need more from life. There's this quote from Epicurus, he's an ancient Stoic, who said, remember that what you have now was once among the things you only hoped for.
Oh, 100%.
So it's like, it's such a beautiful moment to be like, yeah, wow, I have all this. But if it keeps you from wanting and needing more from life, then it keeps you out of abundance. The highest form of gratitude is abundance, which is to be grateful for everything that you've been given and for that to feel like enough with arms wide open for all that God or life or the universe still has for you because there's so much more.
There's so much more. I like that you added that because some people are like, hey, just be have gratitude for what you have.
I should just be grateful for everything I have.
But I truly believe there's so much more. Now, that doesn't mean you're not grateful for what you have. And it's a fine line. It's a really fine line because a lot of times with leaders, they're always pushing to the next level and they can't be grateful here.
Yes.
But what's so important is to be like, I'm really grateful here. But I know there's so much more.
Yes.
And when I walk every day, every step I put in front of the other, it's like I have so much more capability. Mm-hmm. And then I think it gives you energy too to put everything, no matter where you're at, you can do anything. Like if you're with your kids, you spend more time. Like I find as a leader, I don't want to say busy, but the more in tuned and more control I have over my time, maybe that's a better way to say it, where I'm in control of my time and my time doesn't control me, then I actually spend more quality time with my family. Maybe not as much time, but more quality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, because I work a lot, but actually I find that I have more quality time. I'll lay in bed more. I'll, out on the weekends, we'll go do something fun. But I love that you said that. So transition a little bit. Like you didn't know you're an accidental entrepreneur, but how did you take the leap to know this is what you want to do?
So I find out that I'm living a 9 out of 10 stress life instead of a 2. And it was a few weeks later that I was talking to one of my mentors. His name is Chris. And I was talking to him on the phone. And he essentially, figuratively, put his hands through the phone and started shaking me with my shoulder, saying, "Listen, you're Mitch Whiting. You love people like I've never seen before. You're a high achiever. You're this and you're that. But do you realize you view yourself as a wounded bird?" And when he said that, I knew he was right. And I'm like, Chris, I don't know why. I know I'm Mitch Whiting. I know God has given me amazing gifts. I know I have potential. I know I'm meant to make a difference in the world. And yet my personality is suppressed. And I would go downtown in Bentonville, it's like Stars Hollow. Have you ever heard of, what's that show? Gilmore Girls?
Oh, yeah.
And it's just this magical place. And inevitably, you're going to run into like people that you know and love on the square. I would distract my wife before she saw the people that I saw, like our close friends, and say, "Hey, Tatum, let's go into this store right here," so that I wouldn't have to have a conversation because I was stressed and overwhelmed. I didn't want people to ask about me. And that's not who I am.
No. You can talk to
anybody, and I love everybody. There's no strangers, only friends I haven't met yet. That's really how I feel about life. And yet my personality was suppressed. And so I go on this journey of figuring out, okay, how do I find happiness? How do I find fulfillment? And so what do? I go straight back into self-help because that's what I've always known. I've been listening to Tony Robbins and reading self-help books for 20 years. My dad, when I was 10 years old, would pay me to read these books. And even my grandpa and my great-grandpa worked with Dale Carnegie. So like self-help has always been in my life. And I eventually realized that self-help is perfectly named because it's called self-help. It's helpful. It's motivating and inspiring in the moment when you're listening to the podcast, when you're reading the book, when you're jumping up and down at the seminar. But 2 hours or 2 weeks or 2 days later, we revert back to our suffering state. And that was my experience. I'm like, how am I have a 20-year of obsession with self-help as well as a deep relationship with God, and yet I'm still a 9 out of 10 in my stress? And I ended up reading a ton of self-help books. I go back into it, and I start reading this book called Grit. Because I'm like, okay, I need grit. That's the answer. If I'm more focused and more committed, and if I can just grind, I will be able to get everything done and then be present with my family. Well, I am honest, and I did not have enough grit to even finish the book. So that didn't work for me. And then I found this book called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
I love David.
Do you? Yeah. He's really inspiring for a lot of reasons because of where he came from and where he is. Yeah. But one of the things that I found that is core to his message is that he loves to suffer.
Yes.
I found out a really weird thing about myself that probably doesn't apply to anybody else, but I don't love to suffer. And I believe that we don't have to suffer if we can learn how to heal.
Oh, I like that. But I do, you know what, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
The reason why is because you're also one that puts your face in a cold shower. I'm sorry, that's suffering.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. And I do cold plunges now, which is something I thought I would never do. But I'm also, ice baths and cold plunges are different. I think when people love to break the ice and the science doesn't suggest that's necessarily better for you, it's really 55 to 59 degrees that's recommended. That's not really suffering. Oh, it takes some mental toughness, but it's 30 seconds of breathing. And then you're all of a sudden like smiling and you're like, oh, wow, I'm like calm.
Because you're doing breath work at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
I think what you're saying is, and I agree wholeheartedly, there's a difference between suffering and teaching ourselves how to go through hard things.
Yes.
You know, suffering is just you're going through life, and every day, this is hard, this is hard,
Yes.
this isn't what I love, right? There's a question that I've started to ask people while you're talking about all this is I ask them, what do you truly want? Because 9 times out of 10, people can't answer that. You know, it's very interesting when you find true happiness, when you find your true self, what you've looked inward and you've asked, what do I truly want? At the end of the day, what does my perfect day look like?
Yeah.
And when you ask people that, 9 times out of 10, they will point to what someone else has, or this is what I've seen. They haven't worked with themselves enough to go, this is what I want. And I had to go through that for a while, actually, because it's more culture, it's not doctrine, but in a religion that I was brought up in, you know, one of the ladies told me, like, you know, you should not work, you got to stay home with your family, you got to do this, and my core that's not real for me. And a couple of years,
it's not what you really wanted.
It wasn't.
Yes.
And but I struggled. I suffered for a long time, not being home with my kids, but I knew for me, I wanted to create. And for me, creating is business. And but I dealt with that for a long time and struggled with it and suffered with it. Oh, I got to do this. I have to be in this box, right?
Yes.
And then I said, you know what do I truly want? Who is Tiffany? What is this? And I said, you know what? I really, 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 really want
to do business.
To be a business owner,
Yes.
to be business and create businesses. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, this is me. This is what I want. And I think that's where a lot of the suffering ends, when you stop trying to be someone else.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I do, is help people. I almost titled my book, You Can't Be Better, because we're all trying to be better all the time. And that's this message of self-help, is become better, be better, be better. Like, if I could just rise and grind, get up at 5:30, read 10 pages, connect with God, connect with my family, get in the ice bath, like knock off a few things on my to-do list, go to work, like be focused, be disciplined, then I can get everything done and be deeply present with my family. But that often doesn't happen for a lot of people, including myself. It didn't happen. And what I found was that you cannot become a better version of yourself. You can only become more of who you really are. Like Michelangelo spoke of his statue David. He didn't sculpt David. He took everything away that wasn't David. That's the journey of becoming, is to not become someone different or better, but to let go of everything that's not you. And suffering is what we're letting go of. It's the amount of hours per week that we're spending in a suffering state. And I have found that there's only one cause of suffering. That one cause of suffering is simply believing something that's not true. In your case, the reason why you suffered during that time was because you believed, I can't be a mom and a businesswoman. And as long as you believed that from society or from someone who told you this, then you suffered. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So 100%. Like the ice bath example, it's really pain. It's not suffering.
Exactly.
It's like there's a Buddhist story that talks about the first and second arrow. The first arrow is the one that someone shoots into your leg. It's the circumstances that we experience that are hard, that are painful, that build this resilience. The second arrow is not shot by anybody else but ourselves, and it's the meaning we assign to the first arrow. It's the things that we believe that are not true, like, this shouldn't have happened to me. Or, oh my gosh, it's all my fault. I am the reason why I shouldn't have been in front of that arrow. Or, I'm going to die. My world is over. Everything's going to fall apart, right? Or, I'm not good enough to pull this arrow out and to move forward. These beliefs are what create our suffering. And to become who you really are, to know what you really want. So many people on consultations or when they hire me, they say, okay, I want to know my mission, my purpose in life. And I actually tell them to let go of that. To actually let go of it. And instead, let's become who you really are by rewiring your brain for permanent change, to reclaim every hour that you've been spending in a suffering state, because what you reveal is who you really are. And then the vision becomes clear. The vision becomes clear of what they want, because they're no longer asking themselves, what's my purpose, from a place of anxiety and overwhelm. Because that's
what
normally
someone
when
else
people
is
ask.
projecting.
Yes.
You know, and I'm going to jump about 10 minutes behind because you said something that you're leading up and explaining why something's not successful too. Like the conferences you go to and people are like, oh, hyped, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Because what happens is someone's on stage telling you what you need to do and you're like, you're writing it all down, I'm going to do it. And you're all motivated, but then you leave. And 95% of people do zero.
Totally.
And I looked at that because I was like, this is insane. And so what I find is people listen instead of take and don't take action. And so what we have done for this is to make sure that we go, this is what we listen. These are the things we wrote down. And then what are the 3 things that we believe we need, not what someone's projecting, and what do we need to take action on to create what we want to create?
Amazing.
You know, because so often we receive information, but we don't internalize it. And then you said something else, which is so, so important. I wish anybody would hear this. Our minds are so busy. Like, let me check this off. Let me check off working out. Let me check off the book. Let me have a moment with God. Let me have a moment with work. Then let me get home.
Yeah, do.
Check.
Yeah.
But the problem is we're not sitting back and breathing and giving our minds time to think. And so it's not successful because at some time your mind's going to shut down and say, I'm done.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's usually because we're creating from a suffering state.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to create powerfully from a suffering state. And you can create, like I like to say, this is really weird. It might sound really weird, but that I do hard work, but I don't work hard. Okay? I don't work hard. I don't grind. I don't grit. I don't hustle. That's working hard. But I do hard work. I'm writing a book. Mm-hmm. I have I've created a thriving business. Like I host retreats all over the world. Like these are hard things, but it doesn't feel like hard work. Why? Because I'm living from a powerful state. When you are confident, when you're creative, when you're resourceful, when you're in a state of flow and passion and purpose, does it feel hard? No. It's not grit. Mm-mm. It's not grind. It's when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when we feel like we can't do something. That's when the hard work feels like working hard.
Mm-hmm. It's you're gritting your knuckles to see how long you can last,
yes.
right? And instead, if you come from a place from creation,
yes,
it brings actually peace
mm-hmm.
and evolving and developing and just everything you want to create. So I love that you say that because so often you do hear, like, because I say all the time that I work hard. I love what I do.
Yes.
And so maybe I need to change that with my kids. But I do think it's important to learn how to do hard things.
Yeah,
and
for
that's
sure.
a different
From
statement.
a powerful state.
Yes, from a powerful
Yes.
state. So, like, because we do cold plunges. Actually, I need to get back into them. It's been about a month. But my husband does one every morning.
Yes.
And it's about learning how to do hard things. And I know we're saying the same thing but differently, but learning how to go through hard moments, because I think everybody goes through hard moments, but learning how to do it from a powerful state is different.
My 5-year-old gets in the cold plunge with
Oh
me. He
my
only
gosh.
does to his waist.
That's amazing.
But he gets in and before he has to say his things, which is, I am brave, I am strong, I can do hard things.
Oh, I love that.
And so, again, he's doing a hard thing, but it doesn't feel like this
Mm-hmm.
hard experience because, and he starts breathing, he's like,
yeah.
and he's doing his little
love
5-year-old
that.
breaths before, and he's gotten all 4 of his grandparents when they come to visit in Arkansas to get in. And he helps them breathe, and like it's so sweet. They're looking at him, they're like in tears. It's an emotional experience, your first cold plunge, and him just beaming and smiling at them. But he's in a powerful state because he's believing things that are true, which is that he can do this. He's brave, he's strong, and that he can do hard things.
So you decided to become an entrepreneur. How was that journey stepping away from Walmart?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's really scary.
Yeah, so it wasn't scary for me, and this is it, which is also might sound weird, but it's very commonly taught that you have to take the entrepreneurial leap, or that
That's
you
actually
gotta
a book,
burn all
Entrepreneurial
boats.
Leap.
Yeah, is it? Yeah,
It
no
is.
surprise. Or burn all boats, right? If you
Okay.
want to take the island, you got to burn all boats so that there's no plan B.
Oh, yeah.
And that is one way to approach entrepreneurship. It is not the way that I approached entrepreneurship. When I reclaimed my time, which was 50 hours a week that I was spending in a suffering state, when I got that time back, I could love and build and serve and create from a place I didn't know I was capable of. One of the things that I like to say is that you cannot comprehend what you're capable of from your present self. This especially applies to us when we're spending a significant amount of time in a suffering state. When you become who you really are by letting go of the lies that are creating your suffering, when you let go of the hours of spending time in a suffering state, then you become who you really are. And again, you can build and love and give and serve and create from a place that you've always wanted to. And so I start writing content online, and all of a sudden, over the next few years, I have an audience where 10 million people read my content online. I'm really a writer who happens to be a coach, because the stories that I wrote as I documented my learning, because I don't create content, I just document my learning publicly, and people wanted help. And so I found someone who was like, I'm struggling to be consistent in my life outside of work. And I just reached out and I said, I can help you. That was my story. And that was my first client. And then a few weeks later, someone else posted something like they were struggling with something. And I just let them know, I can help you. And that was my second client. And then I started making more money in 10 hours a week than I was in 40 hours a week in my day job. And at some point I'm like, oh, actually, this doesn't make sense for me to stay in this job. My wife has had the blessing. She's always been entrepreneurial. Like, she's from a young age. You probably remember she was doing these art businesses and stuff. But what she really wanted was to be home with our kids. And that was what she really wanted. And so she has never been an employee in her life, which is mind-blowing to me. And she wanted to spend time with our kids. I always thought it would be cool to have two incomes. Like, dual income life sounded really good to me. And I didn't know that I would be the one having two incomes. I was creating, I had my employee income, and then I had this business that started to thrive. But at some point it didn't make sense to stay there anymore. And so I just moved forward. And it wasn't a leap, though, because I was making more money.
You were making more money. So at that point it didn't, I think that's, when you have kids, I would wholeheartedly recommend that. I didn't have that opportunity. When we came to Arizona, we were broke. Yeah. We had no heat in our home, and we had we were on food storage. So it was like, whatever we got to do, feast or famine, right? But I always recommend, there's no reason to leave and just suffer through this.
Yeah, you get your first client in whatever kind of business, your first customer, and then get your second customer, and then you get your third customer. Yeah. And it's just like, so many of us are worried about building this big business that replaces our income when we haven't even served one person.
Oh,
so you just serve the first person, and then it can become a business. There's two different ways to go about it. You can take the entrepreneurial leap. It worked for you. It was also hard. Yeah, you didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. But if you have a choice and you can see that there is another way, then you can try that too.
I love that you said, I forgot, suffering through it. But your wife, she used to babysit our kids, and she was always meant to be a fantastic mother.
She's amazing.
Like, she is amazing. But I love that you waited until you replaced your income. But when you made the leap, what were some hiccups or roadblocks or road bumps that you experienced? Because maybe yours didn't, but I don't know one entrepreneur that hasn't experienced something where it was a little bit like, I wasn't looking for that. I didn't see this coming, but now I am. So is there anything?
I uniquely ask for help so quickly. I am not afraid to ask for help. I have hired coaches. My wife and I have spent over 6 figures in the last less than 2 years on coaching, which for even us, we're like, that's kind of crazy.
That's a lot.
That's actually crazy. But it's not crazy when you realize that coaching, finding the right coach, not anybody. We're not just trying to throw money at coaches. We're finding the people that solve the specific problems that we run into. And when you hire the right person, the person that is not just passionate about solving your problem, but they're passionate because they went through it and had to find the answers, and now their greatest passion and mission is to help other people. I like to say, your crap reveals your craft.
Oh, so
the crap that you go through actually can reveal to you what your mission and purpose is, which is to become someone who helps other people become. That's the ultimate form of becoming, to become someone who turns outward and becomes selfless and actually helps other people. And those are my favorite kind of entrepreneurs. So I hire those people. I hire the experts that have been through whatever problem comes up. I'm constantly just looking for who has already solved this in their own life and who now for a living does this, and I hire them. And so much of the pitfalls and the stress and the struggle that so many entrepreneurs go through, I don't go through because I just immediately find the person that can help me.
Oh, that's awesome. So are you willing to share the first problem that you and your wife decided y'all had and the first coach you hired for that?
Yeah, it was debt. I came into our marriage with around $37,000 of debt. I had student loans, and then we had medical debt from our first child and from some health things that my wife went through. And I remember we were sitting on our couch in our one-bedroom apartment, and we had brought up this Excel spreadsheet, and I was doing all the math of like, okay, when our first student loan payment is due, can we afford it? And how are we going to pay this off in the 10 years that it would be due, everything? And we couldn't even afford the first payment for when it would be due with the current income that we had. And so we're like stressed. We're like, how are we going to do this? Like, we can't even afford the first payment. And I listened to a podcast of this young couple who had paid off $20,000 of debt in 6 months as college students. Wow. And I was like, that's not possible. But it must have been possible because I believed them. Yeah. And it was my eyes opened up to possibility instead of the limitation that I was living in. And so my wife and I, we invested in ourselves. For the first time, we bought 2 digital courses, and then we ended up working with a financial coach. And in 5.5 months, I was making $50,000 a year. I should say $50,500 because that 500 made a big difference.
It makes a big difference.
That $50,500 a year that we were making, we were able to pay off $37,000 of debt in 5.5 months. Why? Because we had a path.
Yep.
We had coaches and we had courses. We had people that had already been through our journey that could tell us exactly what to do, and we were aligned and committed in the process. It literally turned decades into days for us. Most people are paying off their debt for decades. We paid it off in days, and I just have story after story after story of people that we've hired that have turned decades into days for us.
But what you said is your commitment too. Like, you can hire a coach, but if you're not committed, it's not going to change, right? Like, to be able to do that, $55,500, and be able to pay off $37,000 in 5 months
is crazy. It was amazing.
Not only crazy, that's discipline, commitment, and when someone wanted to ask you, hey, let's go out to eat, you probably said no.
Yeah, we didn't.
Said, hey, I'm sorry, we have a plan, and you had this plan of action.
We sold our TV. We sold hydro flasks. If you're in debt and you want to pay off your debt, those things hold their value. Like, I sold 4 hydro flasks that I had. Nobody needs 4 hydro flasks, but I had 4 of them, and I sold each of them on Facebook Marketplace for $5 less than retail. 4 years later after using them for 4 years.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Wow. People were stoked about it. They were in good condition.
But this is what I love. Like, and this is what you made the hard decision. Like, wouldn't it have been easier to go out to eat, spend the money? Because that's what you see on social media. That's what you see in everybody that talks, hey, go live the high life. Don't worry about it, right? But in reality, this is where you can get peace. This is where happiness truly comes. Trying to gain what someone else has does not bring the peace that you need in life to be able to become who you want to become, right? But now you've created a power over your financial state. And when you have power over your financial state, that's one less stressor.
Totally.
Because money is the number one reason for divorce. And so, like, get the stressor out. Live beneath the means. So I love that you brought that up. What was the second coach you hired?
The second coach I hired would have been Stacy Bayman, and she's a sales coach. So I decided that I have this person that I was told that I could help them, and I'm like, but I don't know how to sign them up as a client. So I reached out to a bunch of coaches on LinkedIn, and this one coach said, like, check out this Stacy coach. And so I bought her course for $2,000, and then in 7 days, I got my first $2,000 client. And that's really when our eyes were open to the power of coaching, because I was like, oh, this is like a vending machine. You like put money in, but then it's not. It turns into an ATM where it can give money out, right? And I was like, oh, 7 days later, I was like, what's the risk? Okay, my wife and I were sitting on the edge of our bed. I'll never forget hitting pay invoice for these $2,000 because we're just like, are we really going to do this? Are we going to spend $2,000? What if it doesn't work? What if, like, it's not what I need?
What if, right?
And we were just like, of course we're going to do it. We're going to move forward with faith. And we hit pay invoice, and then 7 days later, I got that money back, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I think because of that experience, I have not been afraid to invest in the right coaches because, again, and it's not always financially that the problem that we're trying to solve, but it still always turns decades into days.
Yeah. I love that you said the word afraid in there, because 9 times out of 10, the word afraid is what keeps us from our greatest accomplishment, right? We go into the what ifs, or we go into, oh crud, what if this doesn't work, but what if it does work?
Yeah.
You know, what if it really does return? Like you just got an ROI that is unheard of.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
on that
incredible.
investment.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I wholeheartedly believe in coaches. So you've been coaching for how many years now?
There's a few different ways that I could answer this.
From the start of your first client.
I think the best way that I could answer it, and the most honest way that I could answer it, and also maybe the most surprising way I could answer it, is that I started coaching when I was 10 years old.
I knew.
It is true. And there was this friend of mine that wore these athletic sweatbands, the basketball sweatbands on her wrists. And I was just confused as a 10-year-old why she would wear these sweatbands when she never played sports with us at recess. And so as a curious 10-year-old, I asked her, and she trusted me enough to pull it back and show me that she was self-harming.
Oh, wow.
And I noticed that her 2 friends were also wearing these sweatbands. And so the same thing must be happening for them. And the next day at recess, I pulled them aside on the grassy hill at Town Meadows Elementary School here down the street. And I said, can I talk to each of you one at a time? And I sat down and I cried with each of them. And I said, I love you. And God loves you. And I know I can help you to stop. I know you don't want to do this. I can help you stop. And I asked them to give me their home phone numbers, their mom's phone numbers. And I promised them that I would never call their mom or their parents unless I first talked to them about it first. And it would only be if we couldn't do it together, if we were stuck. And I never called any of their moms. And over the next few weeks to few months, all 3 of those girls stopped cutting their wrists. And that's just who I've been. My mom has always called me a rescuer. Mm-hmm. She always warned me growing up to not date those that I rescued, which was, I think, beautiful advice. But it's just who I've been. And so now to be able to help rescue people from their suffering full time for my job, like it really is a dream for me, because it's what I've always done for free, because it's what I live for, to help people to relieve themselves from their suffering and to become who they really are. But then also that it's a way that I can provide for my family, and which also allows me to do it more, has been a huge gift.
I love that story.
You
have been a coach. You helped out with my kids. Like, to be honest, when your wife was, before you were husband and wife, y'all would come over and my kids loved y'all. You just have a way of having people gravitate towards you.
So kind of you. Thank you.
But that's where you also know they're a great coach or a great person. Obviously you need to hire who's the best for you. But tell us someone that you've taken on recently.
Yeah.
And help them through the process of what's your number one goal to help people do.
Yeah.
And then how do you actually go through that process?
Yeah, so I help family-centered leaders and entrepreneurs admit that they want and need more from life instead of just trying to be grateful for everything they have, right? And become who they really are so that they can be happy with themselves and deeply present with their family. There's a specific outcome that my clients and I call deep success that we go for, which is not more success, not more achievement, not more money, recognition, or fame. Deep success is the ability to sit in the peace and silence of your own soul without any need for escape or distraction. That's what my clients want. That's what I really wanted, because I had a client, his name's Jason, who was making $1 million a year, and he was working 5 to 10 hours per week, which is the dream, because we have money freedom so that we can have time freedom. That's what we call it retirement, right?
That's what
everybody's saying
Everybody
that they want.
it.
But what we've found as high-performing leaders is that we've obtained what we thought would feel like success, only to find that we're still more stressed out than ever, that we're still not present with ourselves and with our families. And so Jason was spending 110 hours each week, meaning all but 2 of his waking hours, in a suffering state. Wow. He and I like to say that he woke up to the nightmare that most people never have the luxury of waking up to, which is sometimes this grind and this hustle and this hard work is actually a distraction from truly healing because we're busy. And so I help my clients to get the hours that they've been spending, so 30 to 110 hours that they've been spending each week in a suffering state to live consistently in a powerful state, to live with passion, to deepen their relationships. And the secret of becoming who you really are is that achievement always follows. So then they can make more money. They can have a bigger impact in the world. I had a client who had never told this to anybody except for me and a few other clients that were on this call with us. And he, the one cause of suffering, again, that I found is believing something that's not true. And he had this belief that he was going to go to prison. And it's really interesting because he had never committed a crime. And for 18 years, from age 12 to age 30, he had this fear of going to prison every day. Every single day, he feared it. Because in 2008, when the financial market crash took place, his dad was framed for something that he didn't do and went to prison. So he was sentenced to multiple years, 8 years in prison. He ended up getting out after 2 years. But there was a few different beliefs that he had that were creating suffering that weren't true. One of those is that anybody could frame him at any time and that he could go to prison. And as I coached him through this, I asked him question after question after question to truly understand all of the beliefs that surrounded this suffering. But one of them specifically I'll share, which was that, again, that he believed that he was going to go to prison. And I shared with him, there's only two emotional states that we're in at any given time. There's a powerful state and a suffering state. It's not fully accurate, but an easy way to understand it is that they essentially are the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and rest and digest, recover and connect. And I said, on occasion, I've referenced the powerful state and the suffering state as the freedom state and the prison state. One of the things that I found is that when we live or act from a place of fear, we immediately guarantee the very thing that we're afraid of. I said, is it possible that by being afraid of going to prison, you've lived in a state of prison every year or every day for the last 18 years? And he got so emotional. And I saw this shift in him. And I said, how do you feel? What emotion are you feeling right now? And he said, I feel free. And I said, that's what it feels like to walk out of prison for the first time. Freedom. And one of my other clients said, it looks like you've already served your time. So each of us left this call knowing that there's two emotional states. There's a powerful state and a suffering state. And we have a choice to learn the tools to walk out of the prison that we've already served our time. And each of us have served our time in a suffering state. And you don't have to suffer if you can learn how to rewire your brain for permanent change, to be free from the beliefs that you believe, even though you know they're not true. You might know that you're good enough. You might know things are going to work out. But in the moment, you believe you're not good enough. You believe that you can't. You believe things won't work out. And the difference between this self-help, which I've talked about, which is perfectly named because it's helpful, and self-transformation is the difference between reframing your thoughts and rewiring your brain for permanent change.
Oh, I love that. Rewiring the brain is so incredibly important, because when you're living in fear, you're putting energy towards something where you can't put energy towards the power that you need to
And you
give.
cannot create powerfully from a state of fear.
No, you can't. That's where anxiety comes from, depression comes from. And I'm not saying there aren't people that are medically depressed and need medicine, but I am saying that there are people that live in a state of fear that create anxiety and depression from that fear.
Yes.
Have you seen
from
that
believing things that are not true?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And when that happens, all your energy goes into that instead of going, okay, where do I want to be? Who am I? And what power do I have to, capability to do this, right? It's all facts. I think sometimes we go towards our emotions a little bit more, and I think we have to regulate our emotions. Do you find that? And because you're going off a lot of feeling, but do you find that sometimes you need to just go, what are the facts, not the feelings behind this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's the difference between facts and the meaning that we assign to the facts is what creates our suffering or our joy. So one of the phrases that transformed my life was understanding that circumstances are neutral. Okay, so the question I'll ask you to illustrate this point is, what's your gut reaction when I say, does death make people sad? What would you say? With without overthinking, just
well, yes, there we go.
We say
I'll
yes,
just say
right?
yes.
Yeah, death makes people sad. Well, let's say this circumstance, which is death, happens 3 hours ago. Someone that you deeply love passed away 3 hours ago, but you don't know about it. How do you feel right now?
You don't know about it.
You don't know about it, so what do you feel? Neutral.
Nothing. Neutral.
Nothing. And so the circumstance happened, the facts, but yet you don't feel anything. So our circumstances and the facts do not create our emotions. It is only once you know about it that you start to experience something called thought. Mm-hmm. And those thoughts create your emotions. And so it's really, I help my clients early on, just as the foundation of awareness, to start to separate the circumstances and the facts from the story or the meaning that they're assigning to those circumstances, because that's the cause of all of your suffering, is the believing something about the facts that's not true. And so the more you can separate that, then you have awareness of what is the true cause of my suffering, which is always your thinking. The problem is never the problem. The problem is never my son punching my daughter in the eye. It's the meaning that I assign to it, that I'm a bad parent, for example. The problem is not getting laid off from your job. It's the meaning you're making that, what that means about you or what that means about your future. And so separating the facts from the story is so important.
Oh, I like how you said that, separating the facts from the story, because we create a story in every little bitty thing. If I lose a client or something, it's all the story that I propose that makes me feel a certain way, right? And so I love that you said that, because we all put a story involved, and it's but we also get to rewrite that story.
Yes,
we also
always.
get to decide what kind of story we want to create. So I love that you said that, because so often our stories can hinder us instead of create power. That's amazing. So what does the next 5 years look like for you?
I'm the creator of the anti-goal mindset.
Oh.
How to create massive results without setting goals. So I actually really don't have goals, but I do have vision for what the future holds. And
a vision, goal, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is that I like to say that you cannot comprehend what you're capable of from your present self, and that by becoming who you really are, right? The secret of becoming is that achievement always follows. I really don't know what the next 5 years holds. Like, I just last week was talking to this new connection that I have, and they've asked me to come facilitate a retreat in Belize. So in a few months, I'm going to be in Belize. 2 weeks ago, I didn't know that was an option. Didn't know that could have happened, right? I'm writing a book right now. I have no timeline for it, probably the next 3 to 5 years. I think that most authors, if you really want to do it right, it takes a few years. It takes many drafts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm writing a book. I am continuing to coach people and to help them to become who they really are, to get their time back from spending in a suffering state. The most important thing to me is my kids. I'm just spending a lot of time with my kids. We're playing Lego Star Wars, building Legos. That's for them, I promise. We love doing that together.
You sure about that?
Yeah, exactly. We fish a lot. We're going to Legoland and maybe Disneyland next month with family. I've just surprised my dad. It's been many years since all of his kids have been in the same room, and all of his grandkids have been in the same room. And so we just surprised my parents for his 60th birthday to have every single kid and grandkid at an Airbnb in California. So
that's fun.
Yeah, I just focused on spending time with my kids and with my wife and creating memories, because that's what matters most.
I love that. So I'm going to dive a little bit into that, though, because I'm always about, there's a little bit deeper to it. Do you have a goal of how many clients you need to keep? Like, do you track that to know the income you have to have? Because I think there's a difference between goals and visions, and there's got to be some type of, what do I need to be able to create this business so I don't have to go back to a job?
Yeah. When I believe that goals, the reason why I don't set goals work for 9% of people. Mm-hmm. And for those 9% of people, great. For 91% of people, it's not working for them. There's a study that says 59% of people don't set goals. And then of the 41% that do, only 9% of them actually achieve them. So
we're going to go into that next, but
I was not achieving those goals. One of the reasons is because many people, including my past self, lace their goals with shame. Mm-hmm. We create goals from a place of lack often. Not everybody, but most people create them from a place of lack, which is the body that they want because of the body they don't have. The money that they want because of the money they don't have. The house that they want because of the house that they don't have. The relationship they want because of the relationship they don't have. And it's from a place of shame, of feeling like you're not good enough, your life isn't good enough. And so you create your goals from a place of shame, and then we're all told that SMART goals are the only way, that they need to be time bound is the T in SMART. And so you say, okay, I'm going to be jacked in 3 months, right? Everybody's had that goal before.
Yep.
And so then you wake up and you use language like, I should get up right now. I shouldn't eat this sugar, right? I need to go to the gym, right? I shouldn't hit snooze. And the shame builds. And then inevitably, you cannot create powerfully from a suffering state so that you don't accomplish the goal in 3 months in the time that you set. So then the shame builds because now you have evidence for why you're not good enough, why you're not capable. And then we live in this place of lack for a certain amount of time until we're fed up with it again. And what do? We go set goals again. And I have found that even if goals are working for you, that they also limit you because you cannot comprehend what you're capable of from your present self. I've said that like 3 times today.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's so important because if you can instead focus on not achievement, which is what goals are designed to do, to focus on achievement, but instead to focus on becoming, by stripping every hour that you've been spending in a suffering state, then again, you will create and build and love and serve and give from a place that you never thought possible. And the goals that you would set from your present self would look silly to your future self. Because when you gain all of your time back to live in a powerful state and you create from a powerful state, you can do nothing but create powerfully.
So I love, you say becoming, I say enjoy the journey.
Nice, so beautiful.
You have
it's
to learn
focused on
how
the journey, on the process,
like,
yes.
Like the reason why January 10th is named Quitter's Day is because everybody's creating goals. I have to create goals. So January 1, they create goals, or
it's about
December
the
31st.
destination.
And it's like, and then it's the destination. That's not what goals are really about. And so everybody has it really wrong. And I think the time frame is 100%. I'll tell you a goal we set last year, and we didn't make it. But because it was about the journey, we created so many things that will allow this year to be even so much greater, right? So like, I think it's very important for people to have some type of goal or vision, whichever way you want to go about it.
And the Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. I have a live event that I'm doing once a year now called Inevitable Dreams Live.
Oh, I love it.
And I help people to actually get out of goal setting and to get into creating their dreams. And I help them move out of limitation and into possibility, out of shame into grace, out of gratitude into abundance, which includes gratitude.
Yes.
And I facilitate this experience for couples where they can, one, get away from the kids or from their work or from their life, and to spend 6 hours where they can intentionally dream from this place of abundance and grace and possibility, but that the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. There was a study from Harvard Medical School that took 2 groups of piano players, and they might have been the same group, but I don't know, so we'll say 2 different groups. One of the groups of piano players played the piano, physically played the piano, and the other imagined playing the piano, and the same parts of their brain lit up.
Oh, 100%.
I sat next to this woman on a plane on my last flight that I was on, and she said, oh my gosh, I have a master's or doctorate in this. I studied in the 70s under the guy who first discovered that your visual cortex lights up when you just imagine something as if you're actually seeing it. And so I take them through this experience that I facilitate where these couples are able to imagine 5 years out, like what you're saying, what their life feels like, how people feel around them, the car they drive, the house that they live in, the clothes that they wear, how they describe the work that they do. And from this place, they can dream from a place of possibility, but we actually don't commit to actually achieving these things. And that's where it gets different from goal setting, is I believe that dreams don't require commitment. Dreams require desire. If you want water from your fridge, you don't say, you don't commit to go get water. You go and you just get up and you push the glass against the fridge to get water because, one, you have a desire. It's called thirst. You have a desire for water. But 2, it's not just possible, it's inevitable that you'll obtain it. And so these goals that we commit to, we're committing, and again, often we experience this shame. But when you dream vividly from a place of possibility and inevitability, then you create this desire and even this memory, because the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, this memory that you start working towards naturally out of a place of desire and start creating instead of from this place of shame and commitment and having to and needing to.
So you said something really important here, because I've talked to a lot of people about this. People have to learn how to go back and dream.
Yeah.
So often, like as a kid, what do you want to be?
Yeah, astronaut or NFL
anything.
player,
You know,
it didn't matter.
When we
Yeah.
say, great, go do it.
Totally.
You can do anything you want, right?
Totally.
But then about a little bit below teenage years, there's been so many like, no, that's not possible. No,
Yep,
that's not
I can't.
And then all of a sudden, we've stopped dreaming. People have to go back to dreaming. People have to go, because like you said, reality and dreaming, your brain will actually go towards those dreams if you dream enough and visualize it. Because you just said, you didn't say it, but you're visualizing.
Yeah, and the brain loves what's familiar.
Yeah, they have to visualize it. And some people have to work really hard to learn how to visualize it.
Of course.
You know, sitting in the place of peace and happiness and get away from the fear, but just visualize everything you want and then dream. Oh, anything's possible. And that's what I freak some people out, because I'm like, they're like, no, that's not possible. I said, anything's possible.
Anything is possible.
Anything. There is no ceiling to what you can create, what I can create. There are no bounds. The only bounds we have are the ones we put on ourselves.
Totally, 100%.
So I totally
I'd like
believe
to say the sky is not the limit, only your mind is. Right?
100%.
I have a friend, I was just texting him on the way here, and his name is Chris Smith.
Oh, I
And
know.
Chris, do you know Chris?
Yeah.
He says this phrase that's so incredible. He says, possibility exists, limitation is created. Meaning, possibility cannot be created or destroyed. It simply exists at all times, in all places, in every corner of the universe. For example, with God, all things are possible. Anything could happen. You can't create it, you can't destroy it, it just exists. Limitation does not exist. They cannot exist in the same space, just like light and darkness. But instead, limitation is only created in your mind. Possibility exists everywhere. Limitation is only created in the mind. And so when you say that you can't do something, it's not real. It's limitation. And when you step into possibility, knowing that anything is possible, and the highest form of possibility being inevitability, then again, you move forward in this place of desire and you find answers to questions that you never would have found because you believe that things are possible. I created this framework called Impossible Questions, where when I started creating content on LinkedIn, it was like 3 weeks in that I posted a post about my wife failing her biology exam. And so I took her out for ice cream to celebrate.
I remember that.
And it went all over the world, like all through the night, all through the day, all through the night again. Like we were just watching these numbers go. And it's like it reached 1 million people, 20,000 people liked it. And we're just like, what is happening? We're just these new creators. And I realized that the reason why it went viral was because it had a hook, which is the first sentence of your post. But that hook specifically was an open loop. The brain hates open loops. So people couldn't help but click see more when they read, I took my wife out for ice cream because she failed her biology exam. They're like, what? Why would you do that? And so they have to hit read more, and then they read, and it was actually a valuable post, and so they engaged in it. The same thing happens with our brains, my clients, and I like to ask ourselves impossible questions of like, how can I have a six-pack and eat ice cream every day? How can I make $400,000 a year while only working 3 days a week? When we ask these questions, the brain will always say, I can't, or I don't know immediately. And if you refuse I can't or I don't know as the answer, then you step into possibility and you leave that loop open. And so your brain is like a supercomputer and will find the answers from resources that you didn't expect or from itself, that you just have the answers within you when you refuse I can't or I don't know as an answer. Possibility exists, limitation is created.
I love that. I would go one step further. Possibility exists, but everything you desire is when you implement, right? Like I do find that some people will dream, but they won't do anything about
take
it.
action.
You have to take action.
Absolutely.
But I love that. And I have 3 other questions real quick. I see that time is
rapid
running
fire.
out, but it is rapid fire. What is the best advice you've ever received, Mitch?
The best advice that I've ever received. My mind goes to not advice, but this mentor, Chris, and my wife, Tatum, being able to see who I am and what I'm capable of before I could see it. I think even better than receiving advice from someone is to surround yourself with people who elevate your vision for life. That see that you are capable of more than you believe that you're capable of, so that you can normalize this higher level of living. And that's the greatest gift. That's what I do for my clients. I help them see that they're capable of so much more than they ever thought possible, and to step into that place of possibility instead of limitation.
I love that. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice is that you have to suffer, and that life is about hard work, instead of life is about being present with yourself and with the people that you love, and that success is happiness. Success is not happiness.
I love that, because what you just said, I heard a phrase, and I don't know who quoted it, so it's not mine. But if you're worrying about yesterday, you're creating anxiety. If you're worried about tomorrow, you're creating anxiety. If you're here present, you're present. Mm-hmm. And you can create from empowerment. And so I love that. What, if for our viewers, the ones that are going through the entrepreneurial journey, the ups and downs, the roller coasters, what would you tell them to be able to get through what they're really wanting to create, but they're just struggling?
Yeah. I would say discover and spend time listening to your emotional state, figuring out, am I in a powerful state or a suffering state? And knowing that the only cause of your suffering is believing something that's not true. It's what my clients and I call a flat out lie. And seeing, when you see the truth, Jesus said, and when you know the truth shall make you free. Find the truth that's some form of the opposite of the lie and allow that to free you. And then there are ways that you can learn to rewire your brain to actually permanently believe that, so that you don't return to your default state. But it's all about living in a powerful state. And when you live in a powerful state, it is who you are. It is your highest self. And whatever challenge you're experiencing won't be a challenge when you're in a powerful state. You're capable, you're creative, you're resourceful, you can do it.
I love that. I love that. Mitch, thank you so much for coming on today. But before we head out, where can our viewers or listeners find you?
Yeah, I have a free gift for your listeners. At mitchwhiting.com, they can find a free assessment. It's nice. Called the Passion, Purpose, and Progress Assessment. It's a 5-minute assessment that will help you to find clarity on where you are and where you want to be, right? To see that vision, to see what you're capable of, and how to get there. And if any of your listeners are interested in spending time with me and seeing if it's a good fit, then they will receive access to my calendar. We can book a free consultation, and I'd love to spend time with them just seeing if it's a good fit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mitch, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you, or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.